Welcome to the Digital Enterprise Society podcast, addressing all aspects of the digital enterprise, inspiring connection without boundaries and creation without limits. Thank you for tuning in. Here are your hosts, Thom Singer and Craig Brown.
Hey there, everybody, and welcome to the Digital Enterprise Society podcast. Thank you so much for selecting this podcast, because there's like over 2 million podcasts that you could pick. But this is the show that is all about product lifecycle management. The Digital Enterprise Society, it is a forum for the exchange of ideas surrounding the tools, processes, and practices used across the product lifecycle. To learn more, visit digitalenterprisesociety.org. My name is Thom Singer, and I have the good fortune that I get to co-host this podcast every single week with Craig Brown. Craig is an industry veteran and former PLM leader at General Motors. Hey, Craig, here we are again.
Hey, Thom. You know, it's that time of year where it's not light enough, long enough. And the only good thing that happens this time of year is it's the switch over to the next year, right? And so a lot of us are doing a retrospective and reflecting, especially the last 2 years of the pandemic, on what we wish would be true in the future. My battle cohort, Mark, he proposed, and I think it's really cool. We need to talk about our wish list for the future year, and so that's what we're going to do today. Is take this dark moment in time and also talk about the optimistic future, and it starts with a wish list.
You know, if Santa's workshop was busy making gifts for the world of product lifecycle management, they would be very busy trying to figure out what to deliver all of you who are listening for Christmas. And that is what Mark and Craig are going to talk about today. Now, if you're a regular listener, you know that every few weeks we have a digital battle where Mark Pendergast, who is the trustee for content for the Digital Enterprise Society and also has many, many years of experience in and around PLM, he and Craig Brown battle it out on different topics. And today we are bringing you the Christmas wish list as we go into a brand new year of 2022. So as we get into this, let's just start off. Let's just put on our magical thinking cap. We go to the North Pole. Craig, we'll start with you this time. What would you like to see in the new year in brand new PLM features?
Well, you know, Thom, that's pretty tough. The solution providers a lot of them have a lot of rich set of technologies, especially around authoring. And so the creating of the thing, whether it's the create of a model or the create of a test or a simulation or whatever. What I would really like to see in PLM is embracing the data, right? And some are talking about it, but what I mean by that is we have all these measurements coming from all kinds of directions, and I just really want to see product lifecycle management have features around ingesting data easily. So whether that's that product I just drove to the supermarket and back, and it gave some data back to the cloud that was, whatever manufacturer of that vehicle, I'd love to see that in the context of my PLM assembly for that same part almost immediately, right? Some aerospace guys, defense industry, they've been doing this for a few years now, where you immediately see the test data in the context of the CAD and PLM data. So the data I'm talking about is measurements, right? I want to see measurements brought into the PLM context seamlessly. I'd like it to be trivially easy. So that's the big feature I'm looking for. And I don't think it's unachievable. There was a time when it was expensive, but we've crossed that bridge, I think. So bring it to me in context. That's what I want.
So Mark, what would you like to see in the new year?
Well, I've got a longer list than Craig does, but I'm back to some blocking and tackling issues that have bothered me for a long time. And probably my pet peeve right now is they need to unclog parts.
Too much data. Okay.
well, no. If you think about it, in the PLM model, it used to be you had a part and it had other parts in it, and that was the BOM, and maybe it had a CAD file. Well, now it's got requirements, it's got plants, it's got equipment, it's got tooling, it's got all this stuff. and it all hooks to part.
Yeah.
So part becomes the bottom. You can't change anything because part has it all locked up. So that's been a problem for a long time. And they need to figure out how it works.
Well, isn't this the problem that, okay, sorry, Thom, we're going to go into another question without your help.
That's not the first time you guys have taken over the digital battle. Just go.
So Mark and I have had this debate a lot of times, and we were usually on the same side. What the heck is the P? The P is supposed to be the product lifecycle management. It's supposed to be lifecycle too, by the way, but we'll come to that in a second. So product lifecycle management, what the heck is it clogged up with part information? It should be the product. And so the problem is, of course, we came from PDM, part data management, and then we came from PLM, which was really part something management. They said lifecycle, but they weren't serious because they didn't really do it. Well, who am I talking about? It's all of us. This is the way we grew up with the technology we had, and we don't have the courage to go back in. I think it's courage, by the way. I don't think we have the courage to go back in and say, you know what? We need to re-examine our data model and real IT data models, not the data I was talking about earlier in measurements. We need to re-look at that and restructure it to your point, Mark, clean it out. Cleaning it out would mean focus on the product and the life cycle and not on all the part details. By the way, the part details are still important, but maybe they're relationships, or maybe they're even found through searching and other mechanisms than just literally allocating an attribute inside of a structure somewhere, which is what we had to do 20 years ago, but there's better ways to do it now, I think.
Yeah, I think related to that, my second wish list item is better support for re-identification. Mm-hmm. It is a huge task, and we do it all the time anymore, because it used to be a part, you had to actually change the shape of the part or the material to re-identify. Well, now with software and everything else that's going on, you can change that part on the fly, and the PLM system is still acting like you're changing metal shapes.
Well, and then I think touche. So let's go into the definition of this for a second. Fit, form, and function, right? If you're an architect, you talk about all three. And fit and form tend to be things that are in PLM, PDM systems today, right? Geometry, mm-hmm. how to assemble. What gets lost is function. Yep. And I'm an engineer by trade. I worked with a lot of computer scientists at my first company, or what became computer science. A lot of them were mathematicians. A few were architects. And the architects, real architects, they stress this function point a lot. And I do think, if I could build on what you said, another wish list thing I have is really acknowledge functions and manage them well. And so the behavior of a function, a lot of these functions now are enabled by embedded software, what you were pointing out, and they're not at all like fit and form issues. When it comes to quality management, you change the part number when any of those three things change, right? And there are bitter lessons in the car business where when you change the part and you didn't change the identification that you're bringing out.
It's so easy to just revise that, and everybody knows what you meant.
Yeah, but when you do that, you can cause a huge spill, and gosh forbid if it's a safety issue, right? Because then you could hurt people, and that's not acceptable. So yeah, more focus on function. And if you don't know fit, form, function, Google it and look at what an architect says, because there are 10 years of college to talk about this and do it well. And when you look at the design of buildings and the design of even faucets, it comes out in those designs where you got really good function. And that's part of what we're not so good at in the classic PLM and really implementations. To be fair to the guys building the tools, I don't know that they did anything wrong, but they certainly haven't done anything to encourage us to re-identify.
They haven't been helpful.
That's fair.
Part is clogged up, and they haven't been helpful in unclogging it. Is part a CAD model, or is part just a folder with a bunch of stuff that describes this product? That's kind of where I'm back to, and that hasn't evolved in the data. I think you're right. We need to take a step back and say, okay, we've got a data model that we inherited from paper drawings. Mm-hmm. what should it look like today, 50 years later?
Well, and especially when you get into other topics, like how do I manage knowledge about the way the thing's used? So simulation and load cases and all that. A lot of people try to cram it into their PDM system and they get lost. The reason they get lost is because it's not organized that way. It's organized by physics, not by structure of parts, right? And so, this is where we need a really good computer scientist, right? How do you want to organize the information? Well, it depends on how often you use it and how you want to search it and all these other things, right? Yeah. So I think that's worthy. And by the way, it's a lot of work, but might be worthy work. Might be worth doing.
Yeah. Well, again, it's work that's been ignored for 50 years. They keep bolting on crap, but they never look at the guts. This is the Microsoft problem. If we want to hack on somebody, this is keep adding bells and whistles, and the core is rotten and the tree's ready to fall over. But here's another bell.
So we need I have down trees all over my property. We need another windstorm to down the weak trees so that we get on with rebuilding the thing, right? So it's good. I'm laughing, Mark. You didn't say it yet, but I know you're really close to saying if we wouldn't be so short-term focused financially, we might actually make better decisions. But
that has come up in some of our discussions.
In fact, that comes up in every single battle, I would say. But this is a great transition to my next question. So what new scope areas should PLM be taking on in the new year?
Well, I'll take a crack at this one here. One of the things that I've been struggling with and leads to all kinds of horrible things like customization for me is right now we have an object model that I'm sure some relational database analyst would love, but that's not the way people work. People work, as Craig said, work on products. They work on big collections of things. And I'd like to see a more workbench-oriented PLM, not go look up a part, go look at the part next to the part, go look at, this requirement. I want a workbench that says, I'm doing this engineering task. I'm trying to do cost allocation out to systems or parts in a system. Give me a workbench that brings all that information together and lets me do that job. Don't make me go hunt out every part and bring them up one object at a time and do those things. Give me workbenches that optimize my ability to do an engineering task. And I think that's an area that PLM could take on that's completely missing today, but would add tremendous value to the individual engineers. And some of the authoring tools are trying to take that on. But I think because of the nature of systems, you need to have almost everything in the PLM available to you.
So related to that, I would like to see the scope be on what I call consumers or users of the data, users of the information inside of PLM, not the people authoring. When we started out, we were replacing drafting boards. And so how do you draw that spline perfectly? That was a big deal. And it was important to solve that. And then how do you extrude a cylinder or whatever? But we're way past that now. And now we're even doing topology optimization where we can come up with a complicated geometry you could never mill or mold, but you can 3D print it. And so where I'm going with my point is I really think the people need to not talk so much about how do I draw the lines faster or how do I model faster. They should talk about, and it's kind of Mark's point from a different point of view, how do I use the insight better? I'm working on a product. I want to study my costs today, or I want to, how about this one, everybody? It's relevant. I want to talk about my supply chain resiliency. Oh, I got 9 parts coming from a container stuck at the Los Angeles port. Holy, I got a 10,000 part car and I got 9 parts stuck in containers. How'd that happen? Well, we know how it happened. It was cost focused. But at the end of the day, if we would have had that discussion, after Fukushima, so go back a few more years, right? A lot of people started having these discussions about, holy mackerel, we don't want one supplier located in an earthquake zone. If we're going to have suppliers in earthquake zones because they got the best price, then we better have a second supplier as a backup and ready to go somewhere else, right? So resiliency of a supply chain, cost management, even new load cases as products like what we worked on in our careers go around the world. They're going to experience different kinds of load cases, meaning the way a car is used, the way a truck is used. Well, those load cases probably would expand another view. And so I want PLM to embrace product lifecycle management. That's what the term is. Let's get there for real, right? I mean way beyond
Tom,
where we are today.
This is a wish list. This isn't just Weirdoville.
I don't know. I think all of our digital battles are Weirdoville between the three of us, but
you're probably thinking there's amazing we got any products the way these guys talk. but a lot of hard work, a lot of talented people.
Can I sneak another one in, Tom?
Yes.
I got a bigger wish list than Craig does. I'm more creative than he is.
I'm just worn out, but you guys don't know that already.
Yeah. The other one I'd like is one that's actually available in the marketplace, but not for PLM. And this is ERP is probably 20 years ahead of PLM right now, as far as maturity and knowing what to do. And what they offer is standard business templates. When you go buy an ERP, they say, well, what kind of business are you? Are you a little piece part assembler? Are you a fabricator? Are you a distribution channel? You retail? What are you? And then they just drop in a template and you're 90% of the way to running your business, because businesses in that vein tend to do their own thing. And I talk to this with my vendors, my solution providers every now and again. They say, oh, well, we're giving the flexibility to do anything you want to do. Well, yeah, but then I've got to come up with everything I want to do. And if you had an automotive template, and they've had them in the past, they've been totally useless. You drop that in and you get APQP and you get sourcing and you get, all the testing, validation, everything you need. And then you're just dialing in some configurable stuff. And then maybe you customize 2% rather than the current 25%. I'd love to see that. And I thought some of the vendors were started down that road because they started building industry-focused organizations, and then it just vanished.
Yeah, I have my theory why.
Was it your fault, Craig?
No, I think it's
mean to them?
No, I actually think fundamentally it's our litigious society, right? And what I mean by that is if you sell somebody the magic process, then you're partly responsible for the process delivering quality results. And so you bear some responsibility, at least this would be the argument, you bear some responsibility for the product. Okay, so if you're a big solution provider or a vendor, unless you charge an awful lot of money for these templates, how else would you possibly cover your risk that somebody else could sue? Now, I actually think this is a nonsensical argument, but I think people are making enough money selling licenses of authoring tools that they don't think about selling libraries of templates. And it's a really good point you're bringing up, because I actually think there'd be a huge business in it, but I think people are confused about what liability it brings.
I see the ERP guys getting away with it. I'm just curious as to why we haven't gone there.
They're simpler. I mean, that's part of it. And simpler meaning
probably more standard
bureaucracy. And I mean that in a positive way. The accounting is standard. The contracting is standard. So
MRP is MRP.
Yeah. I mean, and engineering could be that way, especially engineering of the same kind of product over and over and over. But the innovators, the guys building a new battery pack or building new sensors that go into some robotic thing, car or otherwise, they would argue, oh no, we're doing innovation. We can't be held back. We want to be able to innovate in any direction, right? So,
yeah, but I would guess the guy that's building pencils or coffee cups or even shirts and pants, probably there's a template that would work for them.
No, you're right. And in fact, it exists. Whether it's shared or not, I don't know. But the ones that are still in business, how do you think they moved all their garment making from, Europe to Eastern Europe to now, Southern Asia? All of us did it. How did we do that? Because we sent them the standard work. They didn't have to go discover it. They just followed it.
Well, they did that. And also I'm seeing a lot of niche providers in PLM now that tailor their product to just one industry. And they're cutting out the big boys who do equipment and airplanes and stuff because they optimize that template and their tool. Basically, their tool is the template.
I agree with the observation. There's a market for this, especially the startup companies. They would absolutely love to come in and buy the APQP thing, whatever it is. They just want to buy it. They just want to get started. They don't want to take the, they read it in a textbook. They might have had it in a class or maybe in a seminar. And now they know they got to do it because somebody said so, or they think somebody said so. That's a different debate. But yeah, you're right. It'd be interesting to just have it just so you can start up quicker, right?
Well, and this brings me to the next question, which is how should the solution provider / vendor relationship, how should that relationship evolve going forward into the new year? What's your wish list for the solution provider relationship?
You're talking about the relationship with us as customers where we buy their stuff? Yeah. Okay. I don't know. Partnerships work, right? But you got to build them, and they don't get formed overnight. They get formed over decades of experience and working together. I think money messes that up, right? I mean, you need money to pay everybody, but I think the vendor relationship, the solution provider relationship should evolve. Where trust is building and not eroding. And I think that's different. I remember a situation I was in, and I literally asked one of them, I said, why are you helping my competitor? And they're like, well, we're in business too. And they had a good point. We're in business too. And why should you get all the goods? You don't pay us enough to be sole sourced. And I'm like, well, okay, that's a good argument. So then how do we find a mutual platform? And, the vendor relationship, as you titled it, it's hard to say they become a key factor because you've already decided you're going to buy it off the shelf as opposed to make it yourself. So especially products companies like where we come from, we want to control our destiny, and we will control our destiny. And that's how we decide what we vertically integrate on. And so that is interesting is, do you vertically integrate in tools? Well, we did for a long time. And then we spun them all off, right? And so, I guess, I'm biased a little bit. Everybody knows this. With Siemens, I view them very positively. And I think one of the reasons is because they're a big industrial company that uses their own dog chow. And I would like to see whatever they're learning internally shared with us, who are their big customers, right? I think that would be really smart for them to do that. I've been retired a few years. I don't really talk to them like that anymore, but I would bet you that's what they're doing, that they're, whatever they're learning internally about PLM wish lists in the future, they're also doing that. So maybe they're an example. They're the only one like that. All the rest are independent of a large company. Now, they got a lot of sales, and a lot of them are really good at what they do, at least pieces of it. This point about workbenches that Mark brought up earlier, there are some simulation guys, we aren't into naming names here, that really get that the multidiscipline sharing of results. So by multidiscipline, I mean vibration and thermodynamics and structural fatigue, and putting that all in one framework, one workbench. That's a really smart thing. So I guess, relationships, improve when they are partnerships. And I would just leave you with that. Do things that make the partnership stronger. That's what makes the relationship evolve.
Yeah, I guess I would say that the biggest impediment to that relationship right now is their over focus on sales and no focus on revenue. So they're always in beating you, trying to get you to buy the next widget or whatever. And you look at them and you say, I'm sending you millions of dollars of maintenance money. Doesn't that count for anything? And the salesman will look you straight in the eye and say, no, it doesn't. I just need to sell you more stuff. I don't care. Somebody else is getting credit for that maintenance money. And because of that, they don't take a long-term focus. They're just trying to get you to buy something. They try and structure their products to force you to buy something. Oh, this is a new module now. We could have included it as an upgrade, but it's a new module that you got to buy because we're driven by sales. The other one that's starting to become a problem is they do all these acquisitions. You say, well, I'm doing, $10 million worth of business with you. Oh, no, you're not. You're just doing $1 million. And this guy we just bought, you're doing another $1 million with him. And that other guy we bought last year, you're doing $1 million with him. And you try and segment it down so it looks like you're not buying anything from them when in fact you're buying a ton of stuff from them. So I think that focus on sales is what's killing a lot of the partnership aspect. And as long as that works for them, I guess, PLM's growing. They're selling new customers. They got conquest business. They got all this stuff coming up. All these EV suppliers need PLM. So they don't care about us old guys that have been sitting around forever buying their stuff and being loyal customers. I almost got to the point where I said, every 10 years, you just need to switch solution providers so that your conquest business and they're going to cater to you.
You know what, Mark? It's 7 years, not 10. And the reason it's 7 is because that's the half cycle on computers, right? Meaning they're half as expensive because of Moore's law and other capabilities. And so, yeah, I'm with you. I think, and this is a commodity view, but it's the way capitalism works. Is when people get tired and lazy and maybe not as responsive. Well, then just open up the competition. You can't do it every year; it's too expensive. But you got to do it more often than every 10 years. It's really sad to say this, but it's true. And it's partly the way these guys are motivated for, I like what you said, new sales versus revenue. It's really, really broken. I don't know, I hope a few of the senior leaders we know well are listening, but they would say, that's not what the shareholders want. So whatever. I gave up on that one. When I retired, that's a problem I'm not trying to solve anymore. I did my shot, and those involved know what I did. So we'll see another 20 years from now if it had any effect, unfortunately. Recompetition is, Thom, to your point about relationship, if I forced you to recompete your services to us every 3 or 4 years, would that destroy our trust? Probably, right?
Probably, absolutely.
Well,
and then we won't share.
Yeah.
Well,
Craig, we won't use the L word. So
now you guys are now referring back to the last battle. So people now have to go listen to the previous battle to understand that one.
Or the future battle. I don't know what order we're going to publish them in.
All right. So here's the other final question as we wrap up this episode. So everybody's always looking for what's new, what's shiny. What is the new killer app in PLM on your wish list?
Mark, you go first.
Okay, well, I'm going to go back to one we had in a battle probably 2 or 3 back. I think PLM, to really fulfill its purpose, needs to start moving into the business process management arena. It needs to start orchestrate. It needs to have a layer, and they used to have integration layers that you could buy, but they were mainly just interfaces to throw files back and forth. But they need to look at some of the business process management vendors that are really good in the space right now as a layer that not only orchestrates the PLM, but starts putting its tentacles into the ERP and CRM and MES and purchasing and all the functions, and starts to be able to pull that all together. Now, our traditional PLM vendors would just say, oh, well, put it all in my database, and I'll manage ERP for you. You just have to customize that MRP thing. But what they need is the ability to have an integration platform. And I right now, I'm actually working with some people putting BPM on top of PLM because it doesn't do everything. It's just, they're building the template in a tool that's really made for it, and then just driving the PLM around to move the data around. And I think that's probably the killer app, because that then gets past this problem of, if it's not in my database, it's not PLM.
Interesting.
I think the other one, I'll throw a second one in here. Bonus killer app is the one you kind of touched on a little bit, Craig, which is the digital twin.
Yeah.
Where you need to get every instance of every product and its performance and its environment somehow wad it into that PLM database of yours and not choke it to death.
Mm-hmm.
And make it conveniently available for me in a little workbench so I can do my job.
And the rest of that app and that workbench is available on any device I have, anywhere I live, securely in the world. That way, when you got to really talk to me in the middle of my Christmas holiday about why this data from the field is the new evidence of my battery failure, I can quickly go examine in the context. PLM will help navigate all this, but in the context of the product, be able to see that in the context of this field results. And so a few years ago, we used to draw pictures on a whiteboard with these solution providers, and they would say, yeah, here's what we need to make that happen. We need a really wide bandwidth. We got that. It's called 5G. We need lots of data storage that's relatively free. We got that. It's called the cloud. And then we got to have meaningful use cases that would bring it into context. Well, I think we got that. We've always had that. It's just been done manually. So the killer app is bringing those three worlds together and making it seamless. I mean, someone's got to pay for the services. I get all that, but you'll be amazed what engineers will do and how the quality will continue to improve. And it's the killer app I want. Some people are using the term executable digital twins. So you got to get out of thinking mock-up and think about a moving system that's moving based upon its field experience. So executable meaning it has a fourth dimension. So 4D PLM, 4D digital twins. By 4D, I mean 4 dimensions, the 3 in space and the 1 in time. So that's it. By the way, Christmas, so it's only a few weeks away, so I'm expecting it under my tree, Thom. Yeah, go tell them I want it. Okay?
I was just going to say, I hope that Mark and Craig have been not naughty. I hope they've been nice, because they had the longest wish list. My kids' Christmas list has nothing on the wish list of Mark and Craig when it comes to what they want in the new year in PLM. So one last question, and I don't want this to go long, but how do we know that PLM would help Santa's workshop? Craig?
He would never build a toy or a present that we wouldn't love.
Ooh, I like that. Mark, why should Santa have PLM?
Well, I think Santa has got a wide portfolio of things that he keeps track of, and just managing that portfolio and all the different configurations that the kids want. That's a big job, and I know he's getting old like me, and he probably can't keep it all in his head anymore. So
yeah, think about managing the naughty list, right? Everything that's going wrong. Who's naughty? Who's nice? Wow.
All right. There we go. So this has been the Christmas wish list for PLM, and Dasher and Dancer and Prancer and Vixen and Comet and Cupid, Donner and Blitzen and Rudolph all hope that everybody is on that nice list. Nobody's on the naughty list. And to all of our listeners and all of our members of the Digital Enterprise Society, no matter what holiday you celebrate or what holidays you don't celebrate, we want to thank you for being with us this year on the Digital Enterprise Society podcast and being part of this community. And we wish nothing but the best for you in 2022. Thank you so much for joining us here on this podcast. And remember, join us every single week, because we're going to bring you more thoughts, ideas, and information in and around product lifecycle management. The Digital Enterprise Society, it is the place for the exchange of ideas around digital manufacturing tools. Go check us out right now at digitalenterprisesociety.org.
You've been listening to the Digital Enterprise Society podcast. Learn more about what you've heard here today at digitalenterprisesociety.org. Join us again next week for more connection without boundaries and creation without limits.